Yeah, hi. So today I'll be presenting on this paper, Mechanism of Participation in Smartphone App Data Collection and Research Synthesis. And please bear with me, this is still work in progress. So if you didn't see some of the predictors in your mind, don't worry, they will be included in the full paper shortly. So basically, there are two problems persist in app-based data collections. The first one is that participation rates from these studies are generally low. And here I include some examples drawn from the general populations. On average, it's roughly 20%. And in this Dutch particular travel studies, I think it's the highest participation rate I've seen in these app-based studies. And the second problem that we have encountered is that the characteristics of participants kind of differ from non-participants in app-based data collections. So kind of simple example is that, for example, in some studies, it shows that men are more likely to participate, or people with more trust in the data collections are more willing to participate. And the two problems attributes to the non-participation bias in app-based data collection studies. And to address the potential non-participation bias, there are some studies trying to identify the predictors of participation. And these predictors can be largely categorized into two groups. The first group is study level predictors, and these are factors that researchers somewhat have control of, such as how much money we give to the participant, the study duration, and so on. And the next group is the participant level predictors. These are the social demographics or level of privacy concerns or trust towards the data collector. But we argue that there's no holistic understanding of all the existing predictors of participation. So each individual studies kind of just look at several predictors, but we don't know all the known predictors. So we asked the research question of what are all the known study level and participant level predictors of participation decision in app-based studies. And to answer this research question, we did a qualitative research synthesis and the literature is screened based on the MOA's Prisma framework. First, we identified literature's records from major database using the following keywords and in the following database. Then we also identified additional records from other sources. Here, other sources basically refer to studies that me or the second author of this paper have come across in previous research, or just from snowballing. Then we screened the duplicates, and it results in approximately 1,900. The font is really small on that screen. And then we screened the record by the abstract with the following inclusion eligibility criteria. So the outcome variable has to be either hypothetical willingness to participate or the actual participation decision to share the data in an app-based data collection studies. Second, the research design has to be quantitative in nature. Third, the data is collected for a research purpose. And finally, the research has to be published in English. After screening the literature in the abstract, we start screening the literatures from the full text, so to see whether they're eligible. And finally, it results in 37 relevant literature. And to ensure that the screening process is more reliable, it's not so arbitrary by one person, me and the second author also did some intercoded reliability tests in the abstract screening phase and the full text screening phase. And the agreement rate and the Cohen's kappa also shows reliable and substantial agreement. So, what are the study level predictors that we find? The selected numbers of study level predictors. To start with, incentive. Generally speaking, regardless whether we paid participant in cash, vouchers, or checks, the more monetary incentive is offered, the more likely participants are willing to participate. And unconditional prepaid incentive performs better than conditional and incremental monetary incentive. As for providing app use feedback, so far the literature suggests that providing app use feedback does not really increase willingness to participate. When it comes to predictors related to the data, the result is also not that surprising, I would say. So they're able to review the data before submission increase willingness to participate, and participants are also more likely to perform active data collection tasks rather than passive data collection tasks. And for study duration, so the shorter the data collection period is, the more likely participants are willing to participate. As for invitation features, so the longer the invitation period is, the more likely participants are willing to participate. As for the framing of the invitation, so far I think there are like mixed findings on the consent question wordings, whether it save times, and then there are also mixed findings on emphasizing confidentiality, security, and autonomy on both willingness and actual participation. As for invitation mode, using pre-announcement, letters, emails, invitations during face-to-face interviews also increase participation compared to just mail or email invitation. And the earlier the question is placed in the survey, the more likely participants are willing to participate. Next, I'll go to participant level factors. Oh, sorry, that slide was skipped quite fast. And for attitudes towards data collection, trust is a positive predictors of willingness to participate, but as for privacy concerns, although it has a quite consistent negative effect on willingness to participate, there is kind of mixed findings as whether it actually predicts the actual participation. As for level of discomfort of sharing the data, the less discomfort they feel about sharing the data, the more likely they are willing to participate. But again, there are mixed findings on the actual participation decision. For early privacy violation, some studies just ask a general like online privacy violation question, so it has a negative effect on willingness to participate. Some studies kind of break it down into offline and online privacy violations, and the number of offline privacy violations kind of consistently negatively predict participation, but there are mixed findings on the of the online privacy violations effects. And the more interested people are in getting feedback, the more likely they are willing to participate, to share the data actually. And for survey experience in sharing smartphone data predicts both willingness and actual participation, but there are mixed findings on survey attitudes towards participation. And yeah, previous survey experience also predicts participation, and lower survey burdens predicts willingness, but not for actual participation. So discussions. So first, what we have noticed is that there's no theoretical framework explaining the mechanism of participation. So actually, a lot of these studies just based on the empirical findings of previous research saying that, oh, in this study, privacy negatively predicts participation. So we formulate a hypothesis similarly. And there's also a discrepancy of predictors effect. I don't know a better terminology of it. If you know, let me know. So interest in feedback. Other people shows that interest in feedback predicts participation, but when feedback is actually provided in another study, it doesn't really increase willingness to participate. Another is kind of within the predictors discrepancy. So some predictors predicts hypothetical willingness, but not for the actual participation decision. So these are also questions we have to answer. And time's up. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.